Good. Welcome, everybody. This is the February 19th meeting of the Carver Finance Committee called to order. And if we could stand for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight we're going to have some updates, financial updates from both town administrator and the finance director. And this will be a prelude to our meeting with department heads for budget presentations, which will be our next three meetings on the February 24th, February 26th, March 3rd, and though we should be able to get them all in. And then on March 4th, which is a Tuesday, would be the joint meeting between the FinCom and the Select Board to vote on the budget. So that's kind of our hectic agenda coming up. So I appreciate everybody's indulgence and abilities to get here. It's appreciate it very much. It's very meaningful. We do need to have the quorums, and we have it tonight, so we're all set. And with that, I will turn it over to both Glenn and Karen to give us their updates and any questions or whatever that we may have. So
yeah, I'll start off.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess one thing to add to Pat's, just so the board is aware, the select board are reserving the date of March 6th, just in case there is a change to the budget on March 4th. So if it's possible, again, just to kind of block it off, that'd be the last date. We do need to have the budget posted on the website on March 7th.
Yeah.
That's, the 30 days before town meeting. That's what we're required by bylaw. Just to,
So if right now it's scheduled for the 4th.
it is scheduled for the 4th, and it's going to happen on the 4th. But just in case they make a change, we need to come back and
Just, okay, so that
just a
would,
precaution.
that would then be a change by the select board.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, by the select board.
Okay, and we have our budget books, which still need some updating. And that'll be coming, correct? I just talked to Karen about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we can get your budget books, we can update them and give them back to you, or if you can come into town hall. I know we have, this.
Well, whenever that happens, so just let me know when it happens,
Okay,
okay?
okay,
And then we can deal with that.
okay. So we'll update the budget books then.
And maybe it'll be by the 4th, and maybe it won't. I don't know.
Oh, no, it will be.
It's okay.
It will
It's
be.
gotta
It'll be before the
Okay.
24th.
Okay. Okay.
We'll have them done this week.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Just let me know, or Karen, let me know
Okay.
when the updated pages are available, and then I will let everybody else know.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
And again, so I'm just going to give you a real high level on the budget, just to let you know I think the hard work, particularly from Karen and from the committee, and certainly with Pat. We've had discussions with him, the select board. We do have a balanced budget to present to you. They'll be ready for the 24th. Again, some of the pages, and I want to just say there's been changes, but I'd call them tweaks. There's no positions added, primarily under $10,000, any of the changes. Sometimes it's the state's either holding back some revenue that we were anticipating, or we have to, we might have to cut back on one of the budgets to accommodate that, but no significant changes at all. With that said, I do think the town of Carver is in a good position. As town administrator, I talked to all the other town administrators in the area. There's a few towns, they're looking for overrides to their budget so they can balance their budgets. Some of them could be contemplating significant cuts in their staffing. We don't have any of that going on right now. We've been able to accommodate the majority of all the wish that we got from the department heads. And that, I would say the biggest thing, and this has been happening for the past few years, is really taking care of inflation. just like you are at home, everybody's budget is just going, going through the roof. That gallon of gasoline you bought 4 years ago only cost $2. And now it's not so bad. It came down a little bit. It's back to about $3 a gallon now. But, same thing, paper, dust supplies, all kinds of, any kind of supplies you're really talking about. Equipment is still, to me, just insane, the price it is right now. We're looking at a ladder truck right now in the Capitol for $2.4 million. I want to say they're contemplating an ambulance purchase through ambulance funds, so they have the funding for it, but I still believe it's $400,000 to purchase an ambulance. Again, the cost is still very high, and I think we just have to adjust to a new reality with that. But with that said, again, overall, I do think the town's in really good shape. I'm going to turn it over to Karen so she can walk you through the details, but I feel very confident about where we are with the budget right now and the progress we've made over the fall and then into this winter. All right, I'll turn it over to Karen.
Good, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to just provide an update on FY24 because 24 is closed. We're finalizing the balance sheet and we'll be hopefully getting everything into the Department of Revenue shortly. We have the outside auditors that came in yesterday, and so they're auditing everything for FY24 so that our financial statements will be provided in a timely manner, hopefully in the springtime. Last year, the FY23 financial statements were presented in the fall. So that timeline has moved up, and now we're just waiting for Department of Revenue to certify our free cash to find out where we are. But I wanted to go over where we ended for FY24. That's been a question that's come up. And do you have a copy?
You have one for everyone?
Yes, everyone has.
Everybody has it.
We got it? Good.
And
What's the date that the IRS has to have this, the state? I'm sorry.
you
have to submit.
So for our Schedule A, the Department of Revenue gave us a deadline of February 28th to have that final report in. And our balance sheet is being reviewed. We submitted it on the 14th and had to make a few changes. So hopefully we'll have that back shortly. Department of Revenue understands that, due to the change in our financial system and the switch over, that there were some challenges with our charter accounts and trying to reconcile a lot of the balances, and so they have given us an extension. And we have also received outside help from Markham's, and I believe they were just purchased by CBiz. I think it's CBiz. I could be wrong. But they're an outside CPA firm that helped the town last year, but they did help assist us over the last few weeks in trying to close out the balance sheet, just due to, just the lack of staff within the accounting department. So the sheet you have in front of you is the FY24 budget summary, and what I did was I prepared this just as a summary sheet showing the budget as listed in the warrant. So in the warrant, you had your townwide shared budget, which consisted of, a variety of items. I won't go through all of them since you have a copy. Then you had your general government, which was $10,686,935, and that included all of the town department budgets, like public safety. General government budget includes all the departments, such as the select board office, finance, assessors, treasurers, planning, accounting. You have public works, public safety departments, fire, police, EMA, and then you have public works. The public works amount that was in the warrant also included landfill and engineering. Landfill and engineering is not part of O&M. It is part of human services, but I just left it there because that's how it was in the warrant. I don't want to confuse people. Then we have human services, culture and recreation, and benefits and other town costs. That was $10,686,935. So those were the budgets. If you go to the top of the shared cost, The shared cost budgeted was $12,976,106, which included a lot of different benefits. And the amount that was expensed was $12,654,654. So there was a savings of, around $321,452. Our unemployment expenses were higher, even though it shows a deficit here within this line item based off what was budgeted. There were prior year articles that were used to cover the unemployment shortfalls. For the Finance Committee last, I believe it was in July, it was before July 15th that we met, and we transferred $33,191 from the reserve fund that was approved by the Finance Committee. So I have it in there, so you had a balance of $141,809 remaining. Within general government, we had a savings of $1,291,935. And, when I look at these savings, and I don't look at it as we over budgeted, but it's really the departments making sure that they're adhering to not overspending. And if they don't need funds, or if they have vacancies, or maybe there were vacancies that weren't filled, those savings, will then roll over into the next year free cash number. Then we have the school department that had a budget of $22,500,218. They spent $22,486,126, and there was $14,092 that was turned back. So the total savings for the FY24 budget for our expenses was $1,627,479. Emergency medical services is paid out of the ambulance receipts. The budget was $987,485. They spent $975,373, and the balance of the $12,112 goes back to into their receipts reserve for future appropriations. For the enterprise fund, North Carver Water District, we had a budget of $699,680. The total budget for North Carver Water District in terms of the salary, which is around $600, that's paid to the water commissioner, and the expenses was $499,73. And then within the FY24 warrant, there was money that was transferred from the North Carver Water District to Plymouth County and the federal government for money that was spent, and they had to pay it back. Out of that, there was a savings of $47,072 in that budget. So overall, for FY24, I feel like the town did really well. We didn't have a deficit. We were able to save some money, and hopefully, when the Department of Revenue finishes going through our balance sheets, we should see I would say a healthy free cash number that we can use towards our FY26 budget. Are there any questions on the FY24 summary?
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The free cash for 26 comes from the 24 budget?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
No, the free cash for 25 comes from the 24 budget. The free cash for 26 comes from the 25 budget.
Okay, but those expenditures were already decided last year for 25, right? So
how it works is free cash is kind of a year behind. The free cash that we approved, the free cash that was approved for the FY25 budget is already been reserved in our balance sheet. It's when we do the end of the fiscal year for 24, we include any appropriations that we reserve from free cash for FY25. Whatever the final budget for FY24, that money is what you can use for FY26 budget.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke. You are correct. I'm sorry. You are correct.
okay.
So yes,
Sorry,
it's you have a couple years delay because a lot of it has to do with the reporting, because they're looking at our yeah.
I understand. I just never
Okay.
realized that there was
yes.
that 1 year cap. Something I didn't learn the last time around.
And that's why it's so important as we submit the balance sheet. We've already, out of our final ending, we'll say checkbook balance, we have reserved money set aside for instance, services that were rendered in FY24, but we didn't get the invoice until 25. So we have to subtract our total available, like checking account balance, to cover those. We have commitments in FY '25 for free cash, so then we have to subtract that amount out of our, undesignated ending checking account balance. I'm saying checking account, it's called, the term is undesignated fund balance, but all of those things are what then makes up your free cash. So after you do that, and then you look at your savings in your expenses based off of what was budgeted, your budgeted actual, then they'll determine if there are any other deficits, because there are a lot of funds. We're looking at the operating fund, but there are grant funds, there's revolving funds, there are a lot of other funds, there's a police detail funds. So we look at, see if there's any deficits, and then they have other formulas that they look at to determine what they feel is the amount that we have as a true balance that they certify that we can use for FY '26.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Tony, Walter? Couple of things. Under general government, there is just seems to be an awful lot of large positive balances, which to me is a little unusual. Is like in public safety is over $500,000. And Public Works is over $250,000, general government another $250,000. Just seems some unusually large balances. Is there any rationale for that?
There is, for some of them, it's just their savings, so if there was any, capital outlay, or if they had vacancies or savings in their salary, they didn't spend all of their overtime, there could be savings there. I can send you the detail report for these, so you can see, like, from each department where there are savings. They had savings in in salaries for some of the vacant positions, and some of that, it just adds up, because when you're looking at general government, you're looking at more than 5 or 6 departments. As you're looking at public safety, you're looking at police, you're looking at fire, if there's any vacancies or savings in salary, or if they had money set aside that they will say couldn't spend or didn't need to spend, then that would be in there. Well, public safety also includes some of the building departments and the and electrical and gas, but I can provide that information to
So
you.
maybe some one-time issues.
There could be. I could look into, to
Yeah,
find out why that wasn't spent.
It just seems to be some awful big numbers in there to have those kinds of balances, but yeah, okay, good.
Did you say that landfill and engineering should be under human services?
That's correct. So in the FY '26 budget, when you look in your budget book, you'll see that
Changed.
it's under human services,
Okay.
because it falls under Board of Health.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's overseen by the Board of Health.
But
He's on the road.
But just in the budget document for FY '24, they included it under O&M, so I didn't want to change that to confuse people if they were going back to the warrant to look at it.
I think that this is a good thing that those numbers are there.
Oh, that's great.
We
Yeah,
budgeted, and then we didn't use it all. So as long as we keep budgeting, smart, wisely.
Yeah. And some of it's just unanticipated, like say,
Yeah.
on public safety, I don't have the detail sheet for it. I'll almost guarantee it's overtime.
Sure.
Yeah.
You just really can't tell how much overtime it is. And then it's vacant positions too. So sometimes if a position stays vacant for a while, sometimes you advertise for positions, you really don't get the quality of candidates you're looking for. You have to re-advertise, it takes a few months, and that's budget that's not being used.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
work falls behind, but it does save in the budget. The general government, I'm gonna say that's probably insurance, and that's a good thing. The more money you can save in insurance, the better off you are. And, the insurance companies are getting better at that too, trying to find ways to prevent you from having to have surgery, things of that nature, Everybody kind of realizes the cost of these things. It's astronomical in some places.
it is. Okay, good, thank you.
And I can provide more detail, I can provide the detail sheets, I can send an email just stating, for some of the areas that you were questioning, whether it was within the expense or the salary. I didn't know how much detail you wanted, but I think a report that might be helpful is the salary to expense detail report. Instead of looking at all the detail, you can look at the salaries and the expenses, and you can see for each department where there were savings. And I can email that to everyone, and
That'd be
you can see.
helpful, I think. Good,
Oh,
thank you.
definitely. Any other questions on FY24? Okay, so I wanted to give an update on FY25. So for the FY25 budget, just in terms of the finance department, we have made a lot of updates and changes in terms of our policies and procedures, and that was based off of the audit management letter in terms of, deficiencies and areas they saw were areas that we can improve on. So just during the year, Laura Bettine, who's assistant accountant in the finance department, as she's reviewing the vendor warrants as departments are sending invoices, she sends me a report every week stating any department that has a percent spent that might be higher than the percent of where we are in the fiscal year. And so then we'll ask the department, where they are in terms of spending, if they may have a one-time item that, is bringing them close to the total spent for the year. Sometimes we have debt service payments, and they're made in the beginning of the fiscal year. So you may see that you're 99% spent in July, and you just started in July. So we have things like that, and we have new measures that we've implemented in Vadar. So if a department submits an invoice or they do a purchase order and there's no money in that budget line, they get a warning. And that warning sign will state that there's no money within that line. They can't go over the statutory bottom line of all their expenses, but then that warning also is submitted to the finance department. So before we pay the bills, we're going through each department and looking at the budgets and to make sure that there's enough money in their overall expense line to cover, whatever invoice that they're expensing. So we're putting in different measures to make sure that departments aren't going over their budgets, and we didn't have that problem last year, but it's just a measure that you want to take so that in May, if there are any changes or if we see a department that's, overspending, or they could get permission. So for instance, if a department has, new equipment, and that equipment is, the expenses are higher just due to inflation or just the cost of the parts, they may not have enough, but they'll let me know, and so that I'll bring it to the finance committee at the end of the fiscal year if they don't have enough money to cover that. But it's something that I'm aware of on a monthly basis, and it's something that I'm reviewing every month so that we can make whatever arrangements that we have. For instance, when I submitted the budgets, you'll see in the budgets there that I sent today in the building inspections department, there's a deficit of $800, and that has been approved by myself just due to the fact that we added weights and measures. There's a weights and measures position, and they needed additional equipment, and they just never had it budgeted in their budget in FY25 because it was a new position. So there are things like that that I'm aware of, that I'm working with departments, and so that we're making sure that we have the money to cover, little expenses, and no other additional costs will be expensed from that budget. And then I'll also, if I see areas where departments are getting close to, spending or getting close to the limit, an email will go to the town administrator as well, so that everybody is in the loop of what's happening. And so that's something, and, as I'm sending out the monthly reports, as you're going through it, please feel free to ask. But I go through those in detail every month, and I look at everything, on a weekly basis as the warrants are being submitted to me.
I guess on the weights and measures, just so you're aware, so previously we had a consultant doing that work for us, and we brought it in-house, and they budgeted for the gentleman's salary. It's an overall savings to the town, but I think it was $859. They just didn't budget his equipment. So he is over on his, technically over on his budget by the $859, because we didn't budget the equipment, but overall there's a savings.
Doesn't that position generate in permit fees and stuff?
He would, yes.
Yes, so for the revenue, it goes into our local receipts. So that does add to the revenue. but it's not like the ambulance receipts fund where the money that we bring in through the ambulance receipts are used to cover the entire budget. But the Weights and Measures has brought in money this fiscal year, and you should see, I believe I sent a revenue summary report to everyone. Might have been a month or so ago. Did you get it? If you didn't, I can resend it. I might have sent it to the select board. There were a couple of members that were
No,
requesting.
you sent one out today. which I-
Oh, the revenue report was
Which I
sent out a while ago.
Yeah. Well, if I got, I don't know. I don't remember.
I can send it out again, but the revenue summary will show you, it's a detailed revenue summary report, so you can see every line item. You'll see every fee that comes in, all of the fines that we collect.
Do you, I know we talked about this in a previous meeting, and I don't know if we can do this or not. Do you anticipate those reports being online for public to view? I don't think it's an issue with can we do that or no? Is that confidential?
And it's not. There are different software programs that can allow our budgets to be online. And I think it's called Open. When I worked in Brockton, and we had a software called Open Checkbook. In Open Checkbook, you could go into the website, click on Open Checkbook, and you could click on each fiscal year. You could see a budget summary, revenue summary, expense summary, everything linked to the financial reports in our financial system. And so that's one of my goals that I was speaking to Glenn about, was looking at how we can bring things online so it can be really transparent and people will have access to that information. With our VADAR financial system, we can have customized reports done, and that's something we're really interested in, because then it doesn't have to be done manually, because based off of the way the reports are set up, it's easier to see it in the report as I passed out, compared to the reports that are generated from VADAR. And you'll see, as you look at your report, there's different lines that will show what was spent for that month or for that particular period, and then there's another column showing that same information, so it can get a little confusing. So that once we are able to customize the reports, where you see the budget, here's what's been expensed, here's encumbered, and the balance, we can run those in Excel each month. And then, we can put them online. So I'm looking forward to, this spring being able to even bring somebody in that can help customize those reports. So make it a lot easier, because just entering them manually, it just takes a lot of time.
It's funny you asked that question, Tony. So Karen and I were talking about that today, and actually, that's one of Karen's goals for 2025, to have that information online,
Good.
to be more transparent, when
Absolutely.
it comes down to. So, something we'll be working on.
And then just with FY25, I mean, all the departments are within their spending limit. We're looking at how much is spent. We're more than halfway through the year, almost 3/4 away through. So everyone's spending is fine. Right now, in terms of the revenue, we've brought in 60% of the revenue. Most of it's through, the tax levy. And we're still waiting for state aid to be posted. State aid was at $13 million. And right now, we brought in about 2.9 has been posted, but not everything has been posted. So sometimes it takes some time. We're short a position in the finance department. Our payroll coordinator position is vacant. It's been vacant for the last, I want to say, couple of weeks. So we're receiving resumes right now and hope to do interviews in the next couple of weeks. So we're a little short-staffed, but we're doing well. I mean, we have a lot of cross-training happening within the department. We have different people taking on different tasks. It's still, we still could use another position in the finance department, because there's just so many different areas of work that really needs to be done, that we just don't have the staffing with the 2 part-time staff that we currently have. But that's an update for where we are in FY25. I think we're doing well. We are having a meeting regarding grants. So we're putting together a grant module so we can, provide information on all the grants that the town has, all the federal grants, all the state grants. We're monitoring them very carefully, and just, because if there's federal funds that the town receives, and if those programs are no longer going to be covered, then we want to make sure, to understand how that's going to affect the services that we provide to the residents. So that's something that we're reviewing and just making sure that we're aware of any changes that may happen within the state or in the federal government in terms of the state grants that we have. So that's something that I'll be presenting to the Finance Committee and the Select Board, is just a overall summary of all the grants that we receive. So we don't have a lot on the town side. We have, a good amount of state grants that we receive for the police station, fire department. If we had a grant writer, I think that we probably could bring in even more money to the town, but they're not that large. We have money that comes into the Emergency Management Agency. We have a couple of grants in the Planning Board. We have the Community Green Communities Grant, which is pretty significant, that we use. And the Council on Aging has grants that come in the library. Does anybody have any questions for FY25?
Well, may not just be to 25, but it's one of my favorite subjects, and since you mentioned the word, I'm going to follow up on it. VADAR. How are we doing with VADAR?
VADAR. So VADAR is a system that will provide the information that you need. It doesn't provide it in the reporting style that you may want, but it does provide you with the information. In terms of invoicing, it's a little more time consuming for the administrative assistants or departments that are entering invoices. It takes a long time for them to enter invoices. But VADAR, it's a system. There's more than 20, 30 different communities that have been using VADAR for years, for more than 5 or 6 years. Brewster, received the GFOA certification. They've been using VADAR for a long time. VADAR, they have a meeting coming up, a training meeting in April, the beginning of April. In VADAR, they're going to be upgrading VADAR and adding different features. One of the features that they're adding actually links to Hoppers and is going to incorporate payroll, and that's something that we don't have right now. We use Hoppers and we use VADAR, so we're looking into that. I did look into the other two software programs. So SoftWrite was the financial system we previously had, and it's just not supported. So when you're looking at long-term, and I'm looking at the town 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if it's not supported, it's not a system we should go back to using. Because if anything goes wrong, there's no upgrades, and with technology, there's going to be a lot of changes that are going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years. We may not even be using VADAR. I mean, there could be another system that comes, at some point. You never know with technology. And Springbrook is not, we were thinking about Springbrook as an option, and that's no longer an option because Springbrook doesn't allow us to book our excise taxes. And so that's something that, brings in the town millions of dollars, but it's just part of their software. And that's why a lot of towns haven't moved over to Springbrook. But I am working with IT. I don't remember the name of the software company, but there's one other company. It's smaller. Not many communities are using the software, but just from some of my friends in the finance world, that there's a company that's come up, and then you have Munis. Munis is an excellent software program. It would provide you with payroll. It provides you with onboarding for HR. It provides you with all of the bells and whistles for your expenses and revenue, but it's very expensive. So, I'm looking into what Munis would cost. It's a large system, and I just don't know if the town could afford that, but it's really, really expensive. But it's something that we're going to be exploring.
What's our current obligation to VADAR?
So we're in a contract for another year. So for FY26.
Through FY26?
Through FY26, we're still in a contract with VADAR. I'm going to be working with the school department, but I think that with VADAR, there's a lot of training that hasn't happened either.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think there's just when they brought VADAR on, there wasn't a lot of training, and some of the training that happened was for a month or 2 months, and I think there are a lot of areas in VADAR that aren't utilized. And just as I was just closing the books, I found reports that I hadn't used all year. And I said, oh, this is great. This would really help, the finance department, in terms of our reconciliation for cash in the bank. It pulls everything from the bank account. So I think there's more training and more I'd like to know about Vadar, what it can do, and maybe there's some shortcuts that we don't know about. And I haven't been trained on the side of Vadar for the purchase orders, but I'll be working with Vadar, I'll be working with the school department, Ron Griffiths, and just to see if we move forward with Vadar, if it's going to be sufficient and it's going to be usable for everybody. So over, the spring and summer, we're going to be really analyzing that. We'll look at the cost for Munis, because right now we are paying for Vadar. We are paying for SoftWrite for the school department that's using, and then we pay for Harper's. So when you look at all three, maybe it's not far off from Munis, but those are all things that we're going to be looking to.
So the school's using a different program?
The school is currently still using SoftWrite, and so we mirror what they're doing in SoftWrite to entering into Vadar.
Karen, when you bring in a new system like that, I think about when we buy a new phone, right, a new iPhone, we take our phone, we put it right next to it, and it brings everything over. Is it like we don't have to export into Excel and then upload it back into the new program? Is it more simplified, like a Munix, when you bring in that?
I wasn't here when they did there were import and exports that were done.
Were they?
And I think the biggest problem with Vadar is that the chart of accounts were not reviewed before that file went over. So when the file went over, it was off by a line, which then made 250 accounts be off. And I think with a lack of, not having a finance director that knew the software, there was nobody here to really look and make sure that the chart of accounts and how all the funds were set up properly, all the revenue codes were set up, everything was linked to the proper fund code and the balance sheet. And so that, I think, has been the biggest challenge with Vadar. If the setup had been done, it was 100% correct. We wouldn't be this far behind in closing the books. We would have reports that we could generate, in a more timely manner than we do now. It's just a lot of time just trying to update the financial system, but it's not as easy as just one thing that you usually want to do is you usually can run two systems side by side. And so as you are closing out the old system, you have the new system running. And so if there's things you're working on the old system, you can still do that. I'm not sure how that happened here because I wasn't here for the conversion, but that's normally what happens. And it usually takes a good year of training and meeting before you even transfer software. If it's done within 2 months, I don't think that's a good amount of time. When I was in Brockton, we had an upgrade from Munis. It was a huge upgrade, a lot of changes, and we worked on that with user groups for more than 7 to 8 months before we ended up having the upgrade done, because the upgrade had hundreds of changes. And so we had to make sure that the changes were going to work. We needed to make sure that, all of our tax forms were going to be submitted properly. Everything, for payroll, the wage charts were updated. So it's not that easy. I
Hopefully,
wish
if
it
we
was.
change again, we learn from our mistakes.
Well, I've been talking about this for a couple of years now, and it's not like I've got an issue with Vadar. I don't even know about Vadar, but I do know that the optimum position that we can be in would be to be fully integrated between the town and the school department into the same system, which that's the way it used to be. Like when I was at the school department, that's the way it was, and that's the way that you want it to be. There's, you talk about the cost of Munis or whatever, but you're paying for a couple of systems, but you're also paying a lot of employee time to convert the SoftWrite over to here, and doing all those files and getting them from the school department to get them over here, and those are just the kinds of things. They're, prone for error. And those are just the kind of things that I think we really need to get rid of. And don't forget too, we've got reserve fund and the finance committee to deal with things like that if you don't have the abilities to do it. But in some respects, the sooner the better. But if ultimately VADAR is going to work, that's fine. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference what the system is, as long as it does what we need it to do. And that to me would be a top goal, maybe
Well,
the number one goal of this whole town.
I agree with you, and been working with the school department. If we find out, and I think you have to, have buy-in from everybody. Once we understand what the capabilities of the systems are, then we all will be on VADA, both the school and the town. So we will not. Our plan isn't to run two separate systems. We need to have everybody either on the system or not. But you need time to do that. In terms of the school department, they did the training in the end of the spring, beginning of the summer, and the teachers aren't even here. So for the school department to come into VADAR last year, that would have been impossible. It would have been really hard to make sure all the training was done, and then the chart of accounts weren't even set up properly. So I think, for the school department to come on board with VADAR, and we'll be working on that and looking at our options, everything within VADAR for the chart of accounts, how everything's linked, needs to be 100% correct.
Yeah.
And so right now I can say that it's probably 98%. And I've spent a lot of time over the last 11 months of my employment here working on that. So I'm pretty confident that, if we decide to move forward with VADAR, we'll make sure that we have enough time that everybody's trained. We understand what features VADAR has, and I'm really interested in the meeting in April to find out what upgrades they're doing to VADAR. Because right now, the financial systems that Massachusetts municipalities are using are VADAR in Munis.
I do think you're right, Pat. Sometimes it's worth the extra cost to get the product that people can use. It's almost like a hidden cost where you're duplicating staff time.
Yeah.
Again, not as efficient as you can be at work. I'm a big believer in that, making every employee as efficient as possible. I also think too, and I know you've talked about this quite a bit, it's the leadership. You got to have the leadership in place. If you're going to do a conversion over from one financial software to another financial software, you have to have the leadership in place who can guide the ship through that. And I think that's a critical role, and I think that's one of the things that didn't happen when we didn't have the finance director. There was nobody at the top who people could bring their issues to and have those issues resolved. And again, we are investing more in training now. Hopefully that's going to help. I believe almost the entire financial department's going to that training. And again, we need the experts in-house to help the people who struggle with it every day. Because some people just not working with it every day. And that's what happens, right? If you don't work with something every single day, you log back on the computer, you forgot what you did last month. And you need to have somebody in-house to be able to help.
And we're going to have more training. I'm having VADAR come back in the next couple of months to do more training just in our office, on the cash, on the reconciliations, for the treasurers, so that we understand each other's roles and how the workflow is. Because the workflow crosses departments. And if you don't understand what the assessors are doing, and that links to the treasurer, that links to the accounting, then it leads for mistakes. So if you receive a report from another department and you understand how they're using it, what reports you can run, it's easier. But like you're saying, I'm definitely going to explore I'm going to explore looking into Munis, looking at the cost, because if the cost are a little higher, but it's going to save time in terms of payroll. If it's going to save time and money in terms of not having to use Hopper, if it's going to save time in terms of, onboarding and offboarding and having resumes online that we can look at and having everything automated, then it might be beneficial for the town. But those are all things that we're looking at, and that we'll be forming user groups so that it's not a decision that's made just by myself, but we'll have buy-in from everybody.
That's good. I'd be interested to know what Vadar's upgrades are going to be. And that may prove very interesting to us.
Because every town and city they have the same complaints
Yeah.
that we have. They have the same, issues of only having one screen open at a time. So you never know, I think, with technology, and that you have to download to an Access database, from the Access database download to an Excel report to be able to have a report created. So, but those are things that are coming from more than one or two or three or five or communities. You have 25 some
gotta be,
communities that are saying the same thing, that these are our needs, this is what we want. And so, when I think of technology and I'm thinking of what upgrades they're going to do, I'm assuming that they don't want to lose business to other financial organizations, and they want to make sure that their system is going to meet the needs of all the towns, especially if we're saying the same thing in terms of what we need. But then there are some good features in Vadar too.
Yeah, good, thank you.
The assessors
Yes.
love it. They absolutely love it.
That's good. We don't want to beat that one to death, but that's a topic that I'm going to bring up at any meeting that I'm ever at. So, thank you. Good. Okay,
Any
so
other
what-
questions on FY25? And I'll move into the process for FY26.
Okay.
So FY26, the budget started in October with a budget calendar and a schedule, and that the town administrator put together, and we met every single one of the deadlines for the budget schedule that he put together. We met with departments to go over their capital requests, their budget requests. Each department met with myself and the town administrator to walk through every line item on the budget. As we were going through the budget, we made a lot of updates for areas where we felt that money wasn't needed. So if you look at some of the budget reports that I put together, and they're in your book, it shows prior fiscal year actuals. So you have your actuals from FY23, your actuals from FY24, your 25 budget, and then looking at 26. So we looked at past data to make sure that as departments were reviewing their budgets, looking at inflation and increases, that they were making decisions on having a level service-funded budget, meaning that they were only going to request what they felt that they need to cover services for each department. The salary lines were not done by departments this year. The salary lines were done by myself. And so we have a database of all the employees for the town with their salaries. We had to, we have some unions that are, haven't, settled. So I have an estimated, we had a 2% COLA that was included in the salary. So all the salary numbers that you see, you have the backup reports supporting how we came to those numbers. It has their prior year wage, how many hours they work, and so that's something that we didn't have in the past, a master database, and so we have that, and we keep that updated at all times. So the salary line items are all contractual, and as you're going through your binder, for each department, there's a separate page for salaries, so you can see the number of employees in that department. You can see the names and the titles. I also have a list on in the back of the book for all of the boards and commissions. So it has a list of all of the boards and commissions, all of the members, their names, the amount of stipends that each board provides. So as we put the FY26 budget together, we wanted to make it very transparent. We wanted to make sure, and this came from a lot of the questions that came up last year when I was previously here, that people wanted to see the information. They wanted to make sure everything, was updated and that we had a system. And so, as you go through your budget, you'll see that. Right now, over the summer, which you already know, Mr. Cannon had several meetings. Members on the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and staff met to go over our financial policies. So as we were going over the financial policies, we were able to identify shared, I would say shared costs, and we kind of changed that name of shared cost to
Fixed liabilities.
fixed liabilities. That was a senior moment. Thank you, Glenn.
That took a long time for us to get to, if you remember, too.
Yes. And the fixed liabilities are really looking at your benefits and expenses that both occur in the town and the school that help determine how much the school would receive for their budget in terms of split. I won't go into too much detail, but we spent a lot of time doing that in a very collaborative manner. So as you go through this budget, we made sure that we're adhering to those different policies. And when we get our free cash number and we meet with the select board, then we'll figure out, what money should be going into different savings accounts for the town.
That was just to make a comment that over the summer when we had the group that was looking at the financial policies and let's just say renewing them or bringing them more up to date. That was a very valuable exercise, and we really got things to where they should be. Although not everybody wanted them there, but it was a valuable exercise that's going to carry it forward, and it was well worth the while. Yeah, you bet.
Like I say, I would completely agree. Anytime you can have those kinds of meetings where everybody can come together, and have an open discussion about the priorities for the town, I think that's a worthwhile exercise to have. I really do.
There's a few things that needed fixing too, and
Yeah.
they got fixed. So
And like I
that's
say,
good.
even that change from the fixed to the fixed liabilities, that was, I don't know, 2 or 3 meetings we actually had that discussion. So there was significant discussion that went into that minor change, but
we got it.
But you got it, exactly.
But we got it. Did the split, and it really refined the budget nicely. I think, really did.
So moving forward with the FY26 budget, in your budget document, there's not a lot of changes that we made, in terms of balancing budget. It might be $1,200 where we had to reduce someone's budget by $1,200, but there were a few pages that will be updated. We had the police contract that was renewed, so we needed to make sure that money was in there for the patrol officers. And we're still waiting on some of the fixed liability costs, mainly the Old Colony Regional VOTEC. So we should have that number by Friday, and then I'll be able to make my updates. And then there may be a minor change with the Plymouth County retirement, with the Plymouth County retirement. If we pay the invoice in the beginning of the fiscal year, we get a little bit of discount. So I just got to make sure that we have the discounted figure in the budget and not the one that you would be paying over, throughout quarterly. And so the departments are going to be meeting with the Finance Committee next week. They're going to go over their budget requests, so you'll have a copy of each of the budgets. We have in your binder, if there are any updates, I will provide that 3-hole punched at the meeting. So the departments who are coming to explain what their needs are, they're going to be talking about what their actual requests were. But I met with Glenn, and we did go over and reduce some of the budgets based off of past year actuals. And so when you look at the column of what the department requested compared to the town administrator's request, you may see some variance, and that was because as we met and we're looking at balance of budget, we made some reductions in departments that we felt like they didn't need the money, but they were notified. Excuse me, they were notified, and we had these discussions. So it's not a surprise. Everyone was provided with the updated budget. So a lot of departments requested supplemental. So within your binder, you can see the departments that had supplemental requests. Supplemental requests were requests within their expenses or in the salary line that was over their level of service of funding. And some of those supplemental requests were not granted just due to not having enough revenue. Because, in order to balance the budget, everything is dictated by revenue. What we have in revenue is what we can spend. And our practice within our financial policies is to not use free cash to cover our operating budget. So everything that we're doing in our operating budget for the town and school expenses is strictly on our estimated local receipts, which includes state aid, taxes. So we got state aid numbers in, so we updated those. We have always used the governor's budget, so we'll just praying that doesn't change once it gets to the conference committee.
13.9?
Yes. Does anybody have any questions on FY26?
So for FY '26, we've got a balanced budget. Each department's request has already been vetted probably twice between their own boards, between our two people here. So by the time they get to us, that's what their budget is. So they were expecting them to come in and, tell us about their budgets. Tell us about, what they did, how did last year go? How are they doing this year? And here's what we want to do next year, without getting too involved in any kind of line items or whatever. Let's just keep it at that level. And I think things will actually go fine. So if there are anything else from
I would say the only
Karen and Glenn?
the only other item I have is regarding capital. So for the the capital projects were vetted earlier in this year. Departments provided a list of their FY26 capital requests. We've met several times with the capital committee. We're going to be giving an update next week on all of the prior year funded projects. So we have a spreadsheet showing all of the prior year funded projects, what for FY24, FY25, in the project status. One thing that we did this year is that projects that were completed or they weren't going to use the money, we closed them out. And so when we close out some of the capital, if you look in prior articles, they would take the balance, it might be $40 or $180, and within the capital article, they would say, well, we want to use the old balance to cover new projects. That's just not an efficient way of paying for capital projects. It's easier if the project is completed, that we know that it's done. If you find another source of funding, that you close it out, and then it allows the select board to then use that money as free cash when it comes in and reallocate that to different projects. One of the capital projects that we had for FY24, which was a library roof and town hall roof, the town meeting authorized $1.6 million. We were able to turn back $1 million in that authorization. We only needed around $600 to complete the project because the bids came in a lot lower than were originally authorized.
Wow.
So we this past in December, we issued debt on the library roof. That was $1.8 million. Was it the library roof?
AC.
Yes.
The HVAC.
Excuse me, the AC was $1.8 million. We had a ban for a couple years. And so, when you have a ban, it's just a temporary borrowing, you pay interest. You can have a ban for up to 10 years, and then you have to do, a formal, authoring to bond the project. So we did that this past fall, and we got, pretty good rates for that bond. Some of the rates are a lot lower, so our debt service didn't go up that significantly. So I think we're doing pretty well. We, in terms of our debt exclusion, that was for the elementary school. Every year over the last few years, the town meeting has voted to reduce the debt exclusion. And that's the amount that the residents are paying through their taxes by $100,000. So they, I did some research, and, over the last, 5 to 6 years, they have been getting those savings. And so that's something that you'll see in the warrant this year that will make sure that every year we have an article that addresses that, so that, it can reduce the amount of taxes that the residents pay towards that debt service cost.
If I could, I'd say I would definitely back you up on the budget. I know you have your budget books in front of you. Karen and I probably had 12 drafts that we went over before. I mean, hours and hours over weeks and months. I laughed too, even with the shared costs that we did over the summer. I think at one point we were up to version H, I believe it was. I mean, seriously, because you just keep going through these iterations, and again, tighten it up, tighten it up, tighten it up. And I assure you that if you look through all these budgets right here, you will not see, if you look at the actual request from the department heads and then what was spent, those numbers are very close. And sometimes there is some cost savings, which is a good thing. And like Karen said, I credit the department heads with that for finding ways to save money. But there's no, you won't find a budget where somebody's asking for $50,000, they're only spending $5,000. That just doesn't exist in these budgets. They're very tight. But again, throughout the year, sometimes it's just ways to cost, to save money. And our department heads take advantage of that cost. I think that's a good thing.
I just wanted to add that, as you look at the budgets from the prior year, they're usually the same budgets that roll over other than salary. And so that's one thing that we really looked at, and we were, analyzing what is the budget that you had like 4 years ago and that just keeps rolling over. And you keep, the FY, 21 budget becomes your 22, the 23, except for salaries. So we met with departments and went through every line, and we made adjustments to areas where we felt that, this should be reduced. Sometimes departments may have one-time items, and then it just stays in your budget. So those are things that we looked at and discussed as well. So I think the budget that you see in front of you has been vetted, both by myself, with the department heads, with the town administrator, and I think we did our due diligence in making sure that people aren't submitting more than what they think they're going to use.
Very good. Very good. Thanks very much.
Karen, did I hear you say that taxes might go down? Did I hear that?
You did not hear that.
Okay. I thought I heard
You
say
didn't
that.
hear that. What I said was that the town has a debt exclusion. That debt exclusion was voted several years ago for the elementary school, where you pay debt service costs. And what we're able to do is, if we have additional funding sources, we'll use those funding sources to reduce $100,000 out of that part of the taxes, but it has nothing to do with your real estate or your property tax bill that you pay.
Does that come from free cash? 100,000?
No, we're going to be using that money out of the solar meter revenue.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other comments by the committee members?
I see here, you have this on the capital request. You've got the ladder truck listed under bond proceeds. Is that
Yes.
the approach we're taking? Is that the plan right now?
So what happens with larger capital projects? So with a ladder truck, in order to purchase a truck, we need to authorize it. So usually what will happen is that we would authorize that, and an authorization means that we allow you to put through this purchase. The truck won't come for another almost 2 to 3 years.
Right.
A lot of the ambulance, it's paid for out of the ambulance receipts, but if we, purchase the ambulance, we're not going to get that. We're not going to be paying a bill for another 2 or 3 years. But the authorization allows us to start the process of ordering it. And then if we have additional money that comes in, we can put it into stabilization funds, and we can use that to pay for the truck when it does come in. And we wouldn't have to go out and bond it.
Is that what we're hoping to do, is find that money?
Oh, absolutely. That's, yes.
Okay.
I mean, anything where we can, reduce our debt service and we can pay for it up front, that has been a practice of the town. I think, with the amount of meetings we have with the capital committee, we had Hilltop come in and talk about our debt service, looking at our debt service model in terms of what was going to be most beneficial for the town. We're looking, with a review of the financial policies, we're looking at ways we can save. The more we can put aside each year, for our capital plan, we're looking at our 5 to 10 year plan, and not on, what's happening in the next 2 years, but when debt drops off, what are we going to do?
Right.
Because the money that we're going to have is going to be used for infrastructure. It's going to be used for, capital. We need to look at what are our needs 5 to 10 years from now, because this is where we need to start saving.
Great.
Anybody else? Okay. I just want to go over again our next meeting dates. We've got February 24th, let's see, in April, February 24th, February 26th, March 3rd, and then March 4th or 6th.
No, March 4th you can count on. March 6th is just like a save the date.
Okay.
You can count on March 4th.
Okay, and then if we could have a motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Bill and second
Second.
Tony. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.